waiting for anyone else?
Maxi accepted the invitation, but I don't know if she will come.
She might join eventually. I mean, you can start. We're recording. I think you're recording, right?
Yeah, I asked Michiel to start the recording, just in case.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. So let's get started. In today's meeting, I want to acquaint you with Agile development methodology and especially about the Scrum. So I will go through each point as clearly as possible and explain you what it is and what it's used for. So today's plan is to review the Scrum in general, to discuss pros and cons, to discuss also components and Scrum rules. Then I will provide you some working narrations, and of course we'll review some statistics. At the end we'll have the Q&A session, but feel free if you have any questions once I'm speaking, you can just raise the hand in Google Meet and I will see, and we will discuss in more details if you have something to ask. So first of all, Scrum is one of the agile approaches to project management and development. So it's kind of a lightweight framework that aims to help the team create value through adaptive solution to complex problems. I guess it's a bit difficult to understand, so simply Scrum helps to create a cool product due to the fact that we can make any changes during the development process, because in many other methodologies we can't do this, and if we do, it will break all our plans, budgets, all the houses. So Scrum has a system of roles, events, rules, and artifacts, and in this model, teams are responsible for creating and adapting workflows. So, frankly speaking, Scrum is about the team. So if the team is motivated, we can reach the success. So why do we need Scrum and its pros and cons? Scrum is needed for work planning, systematic organization of the work process, development of the responsibility, and the main one is self-organization in the team. So the methodology allows us to easily put any adapts to changing environmental factors. Starting with pros, the first one is constant feedback from customers. I put this topic also in cons, and lately you will understand why. So constant feedback from customers. In Scrum, it's really easy to communicate with clients in any time we want to discuss any points or to find out any information. Reducing the cost of development, it's also very important because the team that creates the product also can test it. Satisfaction with work done. So as practice shows, and as from my side, maybe from your too, by delivering products quickly, the team experience a situation of success every time the work is done in time and successfully. And the last but not the least, more quick income. So funds from customers also come not, for example, twice a year, but much more often. That's why we can provide new features and receive some income. As for the cons, the first one is that the success of the project largely depends on the organizer of the process, the team, and their commitment to their work. So, as I said previously, it's important the team understand their motivation, the team understand their tasks and communication skills. The second one, and it's not always possible to adapt the Scrum method to the field of activity, as there are projects that require different requirements for the work. So, in different projects, it's really it's not really possible to adapt the Scrum at all. So according to the book or some guidelines, uh, so in our case, we have some projects where we can fully work as with Scrum, but also we have some projects that we can take some important or some useful things to adapt in other. Uh, Also, Scrum requires regular communication with the customer, which sometimes slows down the process due to the inability to receive feedback. Yeah, as I said, we have this point both in pros and cons. So as for the cons, yeah, sometimes clients didn't give us feedback as fast as we wanted. So sometimes we need to stop, or it slows us to achieve some goal or to finish the task. And the last one, it's difficult to implement. Scrum is difficult to implement in large scale and complex projects, as it's more suitable for small and medium-sized ones. So, if, for example, we want to, um, I guess, if we want to create a rocket that will be modified with modern features, we can't involve Scrum in it because this task needs uh, different approaches. So Scrum components consist of five um, main ones. So the sprint. Sprint is the most important. It's, I guess it can be said as the heart of the Scrum. It's the meeting or it's the process where our ideas gain value. So inside the sprint, all the work necessary to achieve the product goal is done. So in the sprint, we'll have sprint planning, daily scrum, sprint review, and sprint retrospective that will help us to finish our sprint. What about sprint planning? Sprint planning is the meeting where the product is presented. So in this meeting, each team member can speak about what interests or problems he's worried about. And also during this meeting, their priorities are set and the deadlines are estimated. What about daily scrum? So, daily Scrum events are meetings which take place daily during sprints. So, it's short meetings, they're about 15 minutes, not more, but can be less, and which are designed to plan the developer's daily schedule. At this meeting, some updates are discussed, maybe some problems can be reviewed. So it's very helpful to move through the sprint. As for the sprint review, it's a demonstration of the working product which was developed during the sprint. So this event takes place at the end of the sprint and it's designed to showcase achievements to the stakeholder. And the last important Scrum component is sprint retrospective. So a sprint retrospective is kind of an autopsy. So it's a discussion of how the team worked during the sprint, and it's a possibility to find some ways to improve the quality of its work in future. Daily Scrum meeting. So as I already said, daily Scrum meeting is a 15 minutes uh, event that help us to update our um, work and to find some blockers that can be to find some blockers that can be removed. So on these daily Scrum meetings, all team members going for each other, they can and they must to work on some kind of uh, scenario. So after this meeting, I will send you some cheat sheet with the whole information about the daily Scrum, with some examples, and of course about some rules. So, how the perfect daily Scrum is? There are at least four ground rules to have the perfect daily Scrum. It's a time limit, its definition of the goal, everyone speaks up, and adherence to the structure. So we discussed already the time limit. Usually it's 15 minutes are allocated for the stand-up, and it's important for the team to discuss all the updates and identify the factors that block the implementation of our tasks. And after that, after we updated and answered the three main questions that I showed on the previous slide, some details can be discussed later, like in person, via chat, or by scheduling a separate meeting. So it's important to speak dry and to give all the important information. And after that, we can dive into details. Defining the goal. So it's important that everyone understands why and for what purpose they have gathered and ready to discuss the topic. So at the end of each stand-up, its goal should be achieved. So what are the goals itself? First of all, it's the prioritization of tasks. After it's making decisions and assign next steps, synchronize the team and other main goals that can be achieved thanks to the daily scrum. To give a voice to all or everyone speaks up. So during each participant during the daily scrum briefly shares important information. After that, it can be followed by a short discussion. Yeah, it's like I already said about it. And the main and the important rule is the adherence to the structure. So, for example, if we join our daily scrum and started talking about weather, nature, and like the sun shines bright and so on, so it means that our meeting is unorganized. So it's really important not to take sidetracked, not to bury yourself in a detailed discussion, and it's important not to miss anything. So here you can see the main Scrum rules, and they also can be called ground rules. And sometimes, in some situations, it's important to operate these rules. So Scrum team consists only of the product owner, Scrum master, or project manager, and the development team. All sprints must have the same duration. So, for example, if we receive some mail from the client and the new project starts, we should discuss what will be the duration of the sprint. So it can be 1 week, 2 weeks, or 1 month, but it can't be more than 1 month. So if we discuss and decided that we want a 2 weeks sprint, it must be always 2 weeks. So for example, first sprint it's 2 weeks, and then second one also 2 weeks, and so on. So upon completion of the one sprint, another one starts immediately. Of course, it depends on some situations, some connection with clients and so on, but it's really important to understand that upon completion, if the sprint is over, the next one should start. There are no gaps, no stops, instead of some situations that can arise. Each sprint starts with sprint planning. So, to start the sprint, we should gather together and discuss what the tasks will be in the sprint. So it's important to have some document or Jira or GitHub, any other tools to write on the tasks that will be in a work during the sprint. The development team conducts a daily scrum every morning. So yeah, the daily scrum takes every morning the same time and the same duration. Each sprint is reviewed so that stakeholders can provide feedback. So yeah, after we finish the sprint, as I already said, we should provide some kind of review to the client, to our stakeholders, so that we can gain some feedback and then move on improvements or other different tasks. And adding to the sprint backlog during the sprint is not a good practice. Yes, this can be discussed more detailed, and I want to take your attention to this point. So, for example, if we already discussed our sprint and we are working on the tasks that were assigned, uh, if we receive like some improvements or any other new tasks from the client, they put into the backlog, but they can't be done during the sprint. So it's really important to move on the sprint tasks that we have discussed. And the new tasks can be done after we finish the sprint. So what about work innovations? From starting from Monday, I hope we will add some innovations into our workflow. So sprint planning, sprint review, and retrospective will be added, as I already discussed, and also we will have some innovation, about the story points task estimation. So you will ask, what is a story point? You didn't discuss it with us. I prepared the next slide. So the story points are a measurement in conventional units. So such conventional units cannot be perfectly like translated into specific hours or days. In other words, it would not be possible to say exactly how long the task will take us time. But if you take a look on this image, you will see that we have, for example, the row how much work effort. And here you can see an hours, day, and weeks. And you will tell me, so we can't perfectly translate this into that specific day or hours. I will answer. So this table is made just for the start, so that any like member of the team will understand what means the, for example, three story points. Okay, here we'll check so that I know something about the task, I have some dependencies, and for example, it will take about up 2 days. And after that, he will say, okay, it will take about three story points. So why do we use these story points? Uh, First of all, it will be more effective, and thanks for the story points, I will have statistics where I can see the effectiveness and the speed of the done work. That's why it's really interesting and important to use such estimations.
Do you mind, Vlad, if I add a comment about story points?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so basically, I just wanted to add that I had like multiple debates with project managers and just reading some things about story points like myself in the past, because I couldn't understand personally why we need to invent some other scale, some other metric, and why we don't just estimate tasks in hours or days, for example. But then I understood, so I read a bit more about this topic. So I understand now that it is actually deliberately made so that story points are abstract, so they are separate from any other scale. because inevitably there will be some mistakes in estimations. Different people, different teams estimate things different ways, and it is important mainly to be able to weigh, so balance and prioritize tasks between each other. So the estimation will not be accurate, but these abstract story points, this abstract weight of the task will help to balance it against other tasks. So this is the main idea. And as I understand, according to the Agile and Scrum principles, it is actually beneficial to have these story points not directly linked to hours, for example. Another thing about story points which I learned, which is just like a side comment, that starting from some moment, it becomes more and more difficult to estimate tasks precisely. For example, if you estimate some small task, like under 1 day, it could be 1 hour or 2 hour task, then more or less most of developers will estimate them correctly. The error will be small, estimation error. If you estimate a large task, like huge task, like 1 month plus or something like that, or many weeks task, then you will just put some arbitrary number there. If so for example, one software engineer will estimate some large task as 120 hours, another developer will estimate the same task 135, or somebody will estimate as 133. It will be the same task. And one of the recommendations, I'm not saying that we should definitely do this, but it's just like a useful side note, that one of the recommendations was to create a special scale for story points that everybody in the team uses. So, for example, instead of when you estimating something, so like two examples there are, for example, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But then starting from larger tasks, you have like 10, 15, 20, 50, 100, 200, 500, 1000. So for example, you cannot just say this task is worth 501 story points. You shouldn't say that. If it's close to 500, you should always say 500. Because inevitably there will be some errors, and these like small differences will not help for the Scrum Master or product owner, for anybody to do any planning. And then if everybody has with larger tasks the same value, it will be easy to understand, okay, these tasks are pretty much the same in terms of the complexity. Another option here is to use a power of 2. For example, you have 1, 2, 4 story points, 8 story points, 16, 32, 64, 128, 256, 512, 1024, and so on. So these sort of scales is one of the recommended approaches, so that people don't try and put some granular estimates for large tasks, which will not be useful anyway. That's the comment on that. Thank you. And I personally love t-shirts estimation. I don't know if this is compatible with Scrum or not, but
Yeah,
I think this is helpful. So when I can put like tasks as small, medium, large, or extra large, XL, XXL, then it's easy for me to understand, it's easy for others to understand, and this serves the same purpose, to be able to balance them and plan the implementation and the sprint or the iteration. Thanks a lot. Back to you.
Yep, thank you for the comments. And what about the statistics? On this slide, there is statistical evidence that agile integration actually works. So surveys were conducted on many organizations that have already integrated or just started integrating this agile development methodology. So, 83% of respondents confirmed that the speed of product delivery to customers has increased. About 76% recorded an increase in labor productivity. More than 70% of respondents noted an increase in predictability, transparency, and visibility. And about 70% noticed an increase in efficiency and improvement of work organization methods. I guess you may heard a lot about agile, how successful and cool it is, and but it just works. So let's look into statistics, into real numbers. So teams that conduct full Scrum have 250% better quality than teams that do not analyze nothing. Building a strong agile culture in your organization will lead to a 237% increase in business performance. 70% of agile organizations say that agility helps them achieve faster time to market. And about 78% of Scrum practitioners will recommend the framework to colleagues, friends, or other professionals. So Scrum can be simplified or complicated. It can be combined with other different approaches adapted to any business needs. So it's really impossible to find an identical Scrum in different teams. And as I said on the start of my speech, so Scrum is a team. It's really important to have motivated team that will increase their productivity with communications, understanding what they need to do, and of course, with people who love their work. Thank you.
Thank you, Vlad. I will just add like a couple of comments as well, because we had this call with Vlad doing the same presentation in Ukrainian just 1 hour back, and we had like an interesting conversation about the practicalities of using Scrum and like real life versus like how it's done by the book. So, and I just want to add same comments here that kind of what is my feeling about all this. I think the Scrum and Agile and other like professional processes and methodologies is not like a finite point where you, and it's not like a flag or achievement. It's like a direction. So we should strive, into this direction. We should strive to improve professionally. We should keep improving every day professionally and move into the right direction of improvement. However, we shouldn't, because some companies like they think, okay, we tried to implement Scrum and we tried some of these things before, and they say, okay, but according to the book, this is this, and we don't have this, so they get frustrated. Okay, like that's a problem. We have failed, and they just get upset and don't feel the success they actually achieved. I personally think, again, this is like a personal opinion, but I think that if the company, if the team has managed to take just few things out of Scrum, Agile, or some other methodologies and use it consistently, like more or less consistently, and just achieve value from it, it's fantastic and it's already a success. So, for example, to give example from our work, we are not following Scrum Agile process like properly or religiously, and we can have this vector. We can move towards like taking like the best from known processes and methodologies. Scrum, Agile, Kanban, for example, we use Kanban in our Jira, and other methodologies, and we can keep being aligned in that direction. But we already use some aspects, and I think that's fantastic. That's useful. For example, Some of the aspects of Scrum Agile are value-based prioritization, time boxing, iterative development, communication or collaboration. We are using that already. So we are communicating, we are collaborating. Slack is our collaboration and communication tool. Value-based prioritization, we're doing it all the time. So I'm doing it as when I'm wearing a hat of a product owner for our product. And obviously I'm looking into the backlog and thinking, okay, this is more important, this is less important, this is faster and easier to do. So maybe we can move it, closer. So this happens all the time. The same approach we're keeping with our clients. So we are helping our clients to make business decisions and make decisions about the scope of the project by explaining to them which tasks are more difficult to implement, which take longer, which take less time, but also explaining which tasks are more impactful from the point of view of technical and product perspective. Time boxing is super important. So time boxing, for example, the sprints will be different in different projects. For example, when we do some integration or some custom implementation project for a client, in some cases we don't have agile and time boxing at all. In many cases we have like a time boxing, which means like we have iterations. So for example, we have a Monday call and we have a Monday release on every week, and then we have a build demonstrated to the client and we have feedback taken from them. So this helps to discipline everybody and to understand, to take that feedback from the product owner, from the business, and also to have the technical team prepare everything for that in time. Same approach for the product. For example, we have a 1 month iteration for our product, for eToro, and we could have some non-ideal, like non kind of not by the book fluctuations there, but we have it as part of our process that, for example, on 15th of every month, in the middle of each month, we are expected to release a build or merge things from development branch to main branch. And if we keep to the same process, even without keeping to other parts of the Scrum process, then that creates a lot of value already, because we know as a team, okay, we're going to have this release. I know, for example, as a product owner, that I should be like more disciplined and before this be able to review the backlog. And for example, what I've done just recently, we are releasing 2209, so September 2022 release of our product, and I see that in the GitHub we have some things which are still not finished and some things which are just not reflected as finished. So I need to review the GitHub issues, and I need to close those ones which are already complete, and those ones which are not complete, move them to the next milestone. So these are aspects of Scrum Agile. They're not 100% ideal, they're not 100% by the book, but we are extracting value from them. It's useful, and the whole process is more professional. And if we keep the same process, even if we are not keeping to it like ideally, if we are not doing it like 100% by the book, but we know that, okay, every month we're going to release, every month we're going to merge, every month around 15th, we are going to release release notes. And that helps us build more and more value eventually. So our users, other developers know, okay, these guys are going to have another release. Maybe I need to wait a little bit for these few days and actually use the latest version. Or QA team, QA engineer knows, okay, before the 15th, I need to allocate some of my time, maybe on 10th or 12th of each month, I need to allocate some time. So Bikash here in the call, for example, decides, okay, I will just allocate some time in my calendar to do regression tests during that time. And I will spend more time to do regression tests. and I will feedback to the team. Same for marketing and sales. Everybody knows that on 15th there is going to be a new version of the app released and new release notes and new features. This can be communicated to the clients, so it can be planned in advance. So these kind of things. At the same time, many things cannot be like achieved ideally, especially when you work like in startup environment or people like wear multiple hats. So when we tried, for example, to do things by the book in the past, or other teams trying to do that, sometimes it's not possible. So if you set up like as a project manager or scrum master, you set up a sprint planning call every week, but the product owner, like a business, or for example, like myself for the product, for our product, or if it's a client implementation, that would be like a representative of the client. So the product owner will not appear to that meeting or will come not prepared. So the backlog is not ready. The things are not put into this burn down chart, and they're not evaluated or estimated from the business point of view. So there is no point in such thing in such situation to carry out a long sprint planning. However, it's still useful that we know this is the process. So when such thing happens, something like didn't happen, as it expected, the team then knows what to do. So the team at least knows the correct terms, titles, and what's supposed to happen. So the team knows, okay, we are, for example, on Friday, and on Monday we are supposed to start a new iteration. We don't have inputs, we don't have backlog, we don't have the enough information from the product owner, from the business decision makers to prepare the next sprint. At least, even if that didn't happen, the team can then communicate and tell the client or the internal product owner what happens. Can you feed that information to us? We are missing that information. So at least like days and weeks or even months will not be wasted. At least this communication will happen faster. So maybe there will be some delay. Maybe the product owner, will wake up on Monday or Tuesday or snowed with some other work, but it will be on top of their calendar. It will be on top of their list. Or for example, in the real life situation, the client will not come to the, potentially in some cases, will not come to the sprint planning call and will not be like spending hour or more like doing these kind of things, evaluating tasks. But based on the understanding of this process, a project manager like Vlad, for example, can join a call with the client on Monday or whatever, when the client is available, and take them through some sort of Google spreadsheet or Jira or some other thing and take their inputs. So my input here is that it is important to understand that value is still taken and it's still generated, even if it's not 100% followed by the book. And we shouldn't be like frustrated or like blame ourselves, especially like being a startup and wearing multiple hats, multiple roles in the team, that we cannot achieve 100% by the book. And we shouldn't like go through some like lengthy like planning meeting just for the purpose of the process if the information is not there. But it's useful to strive to get there and to go in that direction. And we should take stock of the value that's already provided and generated by us by even following some, like Vlad calls them, ground rules or basic principles, like time boxing or daily catch up. Can be different ways can be done, and iterative development, value-based prioritization. Even understanding these terms and knowing that that's the way we should move in theory, and trying to achieve that in practice creates a lot of value. So that's my comment on that. Any other things to add, Vlad, or anybody else?
Yeah, thanks for comments. Yeah, so Scrum is about flexibility. Yeah, it's agile. So um, having some 2 or 4 ground rules will help us to find our own uh, variety of this Scrum. So it's important to have the rules that will help us to succeed.
Cool, guys. Anybody has any comments? Anybody or questions? Otherwise, we can finalize. And I believe we are recording this, so we can upload this. Beneath.
Uh, yeah, I have a question. Like, are we going to use any tools or anything like that to track these?
Yes. So for example, for our sprints, we are still using like GitHub or Jira. And if we have some sprint retrospective or something, it will be in like some kind of boards where we can interact with each other and write some thoughts, ideas, and so on. So yeah, of course.
Yeah. And again, I would just like add that don't like don't get like frustrated or upset if something doesn't work by the book or so and it's we're using agile. I'm not sure if we're using scrum like 100% at least like right now, but we are striving there. And like there are plugins in Jira, for example, so we can have the scrum, the sprint being there. In real life, what might happen is product owner like myself, for example, didn't do the homework in time, and the sprint planning team cannot put everything into sprint on time. So by the correct rules of Scrum, it is not allowed to change to add anything into sprint during the sprint. In our work, that kind of stuff happens. I believe, again, that's personal opinion, it's better to have some principles and have some value extracted from these methodologies than say, okay, we haven't achieved 100% Scrum, throw it away and and just forget about it and cry and whatever. So I believe that it's great, and it's like it's professional to reflect the real life situation and what's really happening. So for example, time boxing, if we have it, and if we have some other principles, uh, it's already creating a lot of value. So what might happen in real life? Okay, we have some plugin in Jira and we have the sprint planned, but we, for example, with our product, so maybe we can keep like 1 week iterations with. So maybe like Vlad, for example, is more disciplined and he's working with the client, and he's able to keep to like proper Scrum for 1 week iteration sprints for a specific client implementation. And for example, we also strive to get like correct Scrum process with our product development, but I'm kind of, for example, less disciplined or busy with like sales, marketing, finance, or whatever, some other things like other hats that I'm wearing, and I'm not able to, or maybe it's not even practical for the real life purposes, that I or somebody else will plan and put into backlog all the possible things that may happen that should be put into 1 month iteration for our product. So instead, what we are doing is we have the backlog in GitHub issues, I mean for Torah, for example, and we leave some reserve time. And then I keep adding things into backlog, and we keep doing these micro decisions. Like I'm doing them, but I also listen to your feedback. So we, as a whole team, we are making those decisions. For example, somebody says, okay, this will be complex, so this will take more or less time, or somebody from the team comes up with ideas. So we are moving in sort of hybrid or agile process where we make a modification. We use some principles, but we are not doing it all by the book. So, for example, I add some things into the backlog, And instead of like having sprint like properly, like in Scrum by the book, we're just making decisions like on daily and weekly basis in Slack, which things are being developed right now. And at the same time, we keep the time boxing and iterations principles. So we know, okay, the middle of the month approaches, we need to do our monthly release. So if we haven't, so that principle I believe is more important. So obviously, if you keep like if you using some methodology, some ground rules should be always followed. So one of those rules is the time boxing, and we can afford to follow that rule. So if we know that the time of the release approaches, we can move things which are not completed into the next sprint, to the next milestone, and start the completion process of the current release. So again, just to comment that real life differences and fluctuations are possible, and that's not a bad thing. It is realistic and professional to not just be stuck on like theory, but also to actually use the tools and methodologies to get the real stuff done. Vinith, any other comments, questions here?
Nothing at the moment.
Great.
Thank you. Vikash, Nihil, Mansi, anybody has any questions, comments?
No comment. I think whatever Vinith have discussed, I also want to ask the same.
Yeah, nothing from my side too.
Thank you.
Okay. I guess we can finish.
Okay, thanks very much, Vlad, and thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.
It was useful.
Hope it was interesting and useful.
It's a great.
It definitely helps to move into the right direction.
Yeah,
Again, it's a process, it's a movement. It's not like a point, not a dot. It's a process. Yeah. So it's like a North Star. It's like direction that it's one of the methodologies.
Yeah.
Thank you all. Have a good day.
Goodbye.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a good day. Bye.